to the channel. We have another pattern designer for you today. I am super excited to bring to you today Miss Alexis of Fiber and Cloth Studio. You already know her and love her because many of you entered her patterns into the Black History Month Pattern Designers Challenge for the past couple of years. And that is quite honestly how I have come to know Miss Alexis as well about her pattern company. So I want to thank you so much, Alexis, for joining today. Happy New Year. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I am well. I am thanking you again for taking the time out of your schedule for us to chat today. I do want to give a spoiler alert to everyone. Her latest pattern, the agave top and dress, I am actually doing a dress version, and I'll give you a sneak peek. You have to stay tuned for my video coming up on Wednesday for the reveal and full pattern review. But I have this beautiful fabric and some lace. Man, you will have to stay tuned to see how that turns out coming up on Wednesday. But welcome, Alexis. Welcome. Thank you again for taking out time of your schedule today. I want to just jump right in and let us hear a little bit about you, your brand, how you got started. Tell us how this transition happened for you.
Well, thank you for having me too, by the way. I really appreciate it. So in like 2019, I went to Europe with my husband. We went to 4 different countries over like a 3-week period. And like, I don't think I realized how much I'd really missed sewing while being gone, because, you had some down periods where, right, just be chilling at the Airbnb, and it's like, man, I really wish I could be sewing right now, but there was no way I was bringing my sewing machine on a backpacking trip to Europe. So, I just really missed it. And so I found myself just, what do we do when we can't sew? We start scrolling and shopping for fabric. So that's what I was doing. So I was doing that. And then also while being on Instagram, I stumbled upon a Wool in the Gang knitting kit. And so I bought one of those. And so by the time we got back home, on my doorstep, there were like a whole bunch of packages. Like they couldn't even put them in my mailbox. I had one of those boxes they put on the front of your house because you filled up your mailbox so much. And that's how much shopping I had done while we were in Europe of fabric and stuff. So I got my Wool in the Gang knitting kit out, and I pulled all the stuff out from the knitting kit. And I was like, well, this is so cool. Like they give you the yarn and they give you the little, knitting needles and stuff. And I was like, oh, this is super cool. So I took all that stuff. I was like, we could apply this to sewing. So that's how I got started with my company, period. I started thinking about how we could apply that to hand sewing. And that's how my business really started. I started thinking about how we could make hand sewing portable. And that's how I got started from there. On the pattern side, Making Magazine randomly asked me to design a loungewear set for them. And I was like, okay, I had no pattern design experience whatsoever at all. And so I was like, are you guys sure? Like, I don't have any experience. They're like, you can do it. It's okay. And I did it. So I was already in pattern design classes using a pattern workshop. So I finished that course within like 2-3 months, and then designed the loungewear set they asked me to make. And it became my first pattern, the Umbra Lounge set. I was able to release that February. Well, actually, I didn't release it that February. I released it a couple months later. But that design released October of 2019, I believe, in their magazine. And because I had already had the skills and purchased Adobe Illustrator, then I was like, well, I guess I might as well just make a pattern company since I already have my own business.
Going down the path.
Yeah. I'm like, I already have a Shopify website because of my hand sewing kits that I was doing. I was like, I already have the platform. I already have the experience. So then I designed the mahogany turban, which was my first ever public pattern. And the response was like super crazy. Like, I think of the first day there were about 400 downloads for that. The next day there were like another 300. And then And I was trying to, I didn't think anybody would care about it. So I made it like super cheap. It was like $2.50. And then a really close friend of mine, well, it was Gabriella from Chalk and Notch. I'm really close to her. And so I messaged her because she had always been mentoring me. And I was like, what do you think I could have done better? And she was like, well, first of all, I think you could have made your price point a little higher.
Yes.
And I was like, yeah, I thought about that, but I didn't think it was gonna really go anywhere. So, but little did I know. So that was mistake number one as a pattern designer. But and I think as a Black pattern designer, I kind of sold myself short just because I didn't really think anybody would be interested in it coming from
Right.
me. And I didn't even think it was that big of a deal. But within the first day, like all these people are like making it super quick and showing how much they love it. And I was like, okay, I'll never do that again and sell myself short ever
Never,
again.
yes, never sell yourself
Ever
short.
again. Yeah.
Don't discount yourself. Yes.
Yes. No, don't discount yourself at all. That was my first mistake that I learned, and I have never done that ever again. So yeah, so then it just kept going from there. The Fatinia was my second sewing pattern that I put out. That also got way bigger of a response than I thought it would. And we just kept it going, and I'm still doing it, still loving it. I'm pivoting a little bit just because of the change and me recognizing how much more sustainable I want to be in my making practice. I'm going more towards zero waste design. I designed my first zero waste pattern in 2022. It was the iris, and it is one of my favorite patterns, and it's always been kind of an undercover favorite by people, and I just really enjoyed designing it. And so I'm looking forward to stepping more into that space moving forward this year. I have about 4 designs I'm currently working on that I'll be releasing this year, each season. So I'm excited about that, to do something different. But yeah, it's been a whirlwind, but my husband won't let me stop, so I'm still here.
Oh, I love that. Now we gotta love that support. Love, love,
Yeah.
love that support. Now you have, for those who might be new to understanding, and I don't even know if I have the broadest of understanding myself, but can you explain what zero waste pattern designing is?
Yeah. So basically, it's the using of all of the fabric with leaving minimal to no waste at all. And so what happens is you usually use the full width of your fabric at a certain length. So it's usually between like 1.5 to 2 yards. But they try to keep it minimal in yardage. But so you draw the pattern pieces onto the fabric itself using chalk or a marking tool, and you use a ruler and you put the measurements of the pattern pieces onto the fabric, and then you cut the fabric because the pieces are drawn on there already. You cut the fabric, and it's usually all the pieces are usually square sometimes, but they're very angular. There's rarely any curves.
Okay.
And yeah, there's rarely any curves. So then you cut it out. Every single piece of the fabric is used to go and incorporate into the design. So you're usually left with like absolutely no waste whatsoever. So yeah.
Oh, wow. So the drawing on, is that hard to do, or is it that you have to think, okay, anchor the fabric so it doesn't shift while you're using the chalk? Is that how it works?
Yes, and I have talked to many different people. I've talked to I have 2 testers who are disabled. I've talked to another person who has a chronic illness, and I've asked them if it's easier, if they feel like it's easier not having to draw it on there. They don't really seem to say that there's a difference between that and having to cut and tape and all of that, your pattern out and place it on there. They said there's not really a difference between that and drawing it on there. So it's really just a matter of, like you said, stabilizing, finding a large space,
Yeah.
or you can fold it in half and
Yeah.
kind of see how the dimensions work, and then you're working with 2 layers instead of one. But if you are working with one, it's easier to just find a larger space and then cut on that one layer so you can make sure all your measurements are accurate. But yeah, it's pretty simple once you get the hang of it. I always tell people, because I don't do printables, but some people who do zero waste, they do also make it so that their pattern is also a printable pattern as well, and they can just put it on top of the fabric. I don't do that because to me that's still waste, in my opinion. But I tell people if they want to do that, they can just draw the measurements on paper Like, and then they'll always have the paper pattern for future
I got you, because that was
occurrences.
going to be my question. That okay, what
Yeah.
if somebody they really want that paper,
Yeah.
and then they can, what should they do? But that makes sense. Then they just
Yeah.
use the measurements and still draw it on paper, so then that they have it.
Exactly.
And
Because
then
in
also
principle,
that
you're
might
still
cut
doing
down on if they need to grade between sizing.
exactly. Well, I will say generally when it comes to zero waste, the sizing is usually a little bit oversized and has a lot of ease. So you usually won't have to grade. We're talking like boxy designs, but that used to kind of be a very like, you know, the designs that used to be zero waste that were kind of regular didn't used to be that, I hate to say the word flattering because I know that's not a normalized word, but they weren't flattering. They just weren't cute. But now a lot of the modern designs that are boxy, they're still cute. You can just kind of tuck it in, or you can wear it. You know, the oversized fit is kind of popular right now anyway. So I
Right.
will say a lot of them are like that. You can also add ties if you want to cinch anything. And
Like
so
the
there's
agave. The agave has
exactly,
the tie. And
exactly
I'm
that.
actually making mine another sneaky. I'm making mine just I think the size I cut was just a little bit, maybe a tad bit bigger. I know it already has a lot of ease in
Mhm.
it, but because I'm planning to wear a belt with it, I was like,
Yes.
okay, I think I want a little bit more of
Yes.
that blousy effect. So that means either or maybe I said I was gonna not use as much of seam allowance. Maybe that's what I did. One of the two.
Uh-huh.
Because I want more of that, loose fitting, and then transitioning to how I would wear it going forward, as well. Different ways I would wear it and
I
style
love
it.
that.
So
So I totally love that because it means you understand the assignment of how I design my sewing patterns. That is exactly what I want. Like my patterns are never like this is one thing and this is the only way to wear it. Like I design all of my stuff so you can layer it, you can add a tie, you can drape it over something, you can wear it with a vest. Like I've always designed everything so that it can be versatile in your closet and go with a number of things. So I love that that's what you're doing. Yeah. That's awesome.
yes, I'm so excited about it. I cannot wait for it to finish. And speaking of zero waste, and so with the fabric that I'm using, and I'll kind of repeat this, I
Mhm.
know, but I only have maybe a half a yard of fabric left,
That's
because I
awesome.
actually didn't think I was going to have enough fabric to do what I wanted to do. But because I was playing with the placement of
Yeah.
the pattern pieces and all of that, I was like, oh, I have a little bit left to do.
Oh,
I'm not
that's
sure what
great.
yet. But
Yeah. Agave is one of my favorites. You know, I did this because Fatinia and my Yarrow pattern, they're both cut on the folds. And for the larger sizes or the smaller sizes, they can kind of be manipulated to use the full width. But for those middle sizes, like you're left with this large like chunk of the side that's like on the selvage and it's not really usable. And so I wanted to get away from that. And so with agave, it was kind of easier to use a lot of the empty space and like be left with less waste. And after I went through that pattern, then I was like, okay, I don't ever want to go back to, making wasteful patterns again. I just want to go back to doing zero waste stuff. And agave is like my last, conventional principal pattern that like isn't zero waste, but I love it because it can be manipulated in so many different ways like that. Yeah.
absolutely. And so you mentioned earlier that your business started out with the hand sewing kits.
Yeah.
Can you is the main reason you started the hand sewing kits was because your travel experience in Europe, or
Yeah.
okay, so that was
Well,
it.
it became twofold because that trip was in 2019, October 2019. So like 6 months later, the pandemic happened. So
Right.
which I was not ready for. I was just like, oh, this is going to be a great way for people to be able who don't have a sewing machine or have access to one to be able to sew. Then the pandemic happens. Everyone's making masks. A sewing machine like that's like a basic one costs like $800 to get on the market because everything was difficult. So I was like, okay, so I launched in September And the response was overwhelming because I was able to make it available for people to be able to sew their own clothing at home with just a needle and thread. And that
Right.
was like the catalyst for why I started this business. I was just like, I want to make sewing accessible without needing a sewing machine and just get back to basics, just kind of simplify, calm down and chill a little bit. And I just loved the process. And I was like, I know it's a very niche thing. Not everybody's into it, but I love that the people who are, they thoroughly enjoy the process. So yeah.
Yes. And so here's the thing, you're talking to someone who, I'm not a fan of hand sewing. I'm not a fan of all of that. But here's the thing. The flip side of that is the more people, because not a ton of people that are sewers that I follow do a ton of hand sewing. There
Yeah.
is quite a few people that do. And so when I
Mhm.
see it, actually, as a matter of fact, you post, well, the day we're talking, the yesterday's post on your Instagram, you were
Yeah.
hand sewing a buttonhole.
Yeah.
And I was like, huh. Because then I was like, I'm like, the things I want to continue to grow and in my, sewing and everything, and not be so basic with some of the things I want to try. But I'm finding, like, if I'm doing lining something, adding techniques on the inside or something like
Yes.
that, or a hem, it involves hand
Yeah.
stitching. At some
Yeah.
point, you get into that, I guess they call it
Yes.
couturiering or whatever. I don't
Yeah.
care what
Couture.
it's
Yeah.
termed, but
Yeah.
I do know the hand sewing does seem to elevate whatever it
Yes.
is that you're working on quite a bit.
Yeah. And sometimes I will say, rather than, there are two ways you can do it. Like if you're hemming something, you can just, put the folds in and top stitch using a machine and it'll look good, but it's so much more satisfying. Like, and once you know what you're doing, especially too, then it really doesn't take that long to hand sew something, but it's just really satisfying getting that really nice clean finish with a hand sewn inside or a hand sewn hem. It just looks different. It makes you kind of care about your garment a little bit more. You're not just gonna dunk that in the machine on heavy load and then it just starts tearing apart because it's hand sewn. Like, you're gonna care for it. You're gonna give it some love. It was hand sewn, so you may hand wash it. It's all a cyclical process to me. It's like the more love and care and everything we put into a garment, the more we'll cherish it and the more it'll last because we cherished it and cared so much about it. So for me, it's like a cyclical process. But two, with the buttonholes, I just couldn't put it on the sewing machine anyway. So I was like, I'm just gonna not even, it was just too thick. It was too thick. So I was like, I could hand sew these faster than fiddling with this stupid machine. So yeah.
So I'm gonna take a look at your hand sewing kits and just see what, how can I incorporate that? Because there's a few things, even with the agave that I'm working on, it's like, okay, I want to do something different. I want to try something new. And then there's some other things too that I'm like, okay, I
Yeah.
totally agree. I can go on a tangent about that, but really going outside the box with our creativity. And like you said, after you because the thing, what makes the difference is practice.
Yes.
So it's
Practice
like,
is key.
okay, first you get over the hump of, oh, that seemed hard to do. So it keeps you from doing it.
Yes.
But then once you settle that I'm going to do it, then you have to get over the hump of, okay, this is okay, I'm doing it, but it's not turning out right. And so then
Exactly.
you have to realize, okay, if you want to perfect it or get better at it, you're going to have to try it
Yep.
again and try it again until you are satisfied with the end result.
Yep. And I think being okay with that too, like being okay with it's going to look a little like crappy at first. But one thing I love, like with hand sewing, it's not like seam ripping. It's not like you're irritated and you're like undoing a whole seam. With hand sewing, it's like, okay, just cut the thread and then just redo it. Like it really is simple. You can keep doing it over and over again until you perfect it. instead of, being frustrated that you have to keep starting over. It's almost an art. Like, you're trying to get the stitches right. And once you are done, it is the most satisfying thing. But yeah, my kits relaunch they relaunch next month. Actually, they relaunch in February. I have a new kit coming. I was using some other pattern designers designs that got me started, and that was so fun. But now I'm using my own designs.
Okay.
So
Okay.
yeah.
So the hand sewing kits they will go in conjunction with a specific pattern.
Yes. So I have one specific pattern that I am turning into a hand. Actually, there'll be no waste hand sewing kits, which is also cool. That's a new thing. So because before I had so much waste from the hand sewing kits, because again, they were all cut on the folds for some of the patterns, but these are no waste hand sewing kits. One of them, I can't say, but it's a pattern that I am relaunching as a hand sewing kit and a zero waste pattern, which I'm looking forward to. And that's going to be my first My Design hand sewing kit that I'm putting into the world. It almost feels like a rebrand, but I'm looking forward to that. And you also can get the pattern by itself, zero waste too, when it launches. So that's happening in February. I'm looking forward to.
Oh, is it? It's happening in February.
It's happening
okay,
in
so
February.
Everybody keep your eyes peeled. Keep your eyes peeled. I'm loving that. That is so exciting.
Yeah, so I'm excited about that. They go really quick. It's kind of scary actually when people are like vultures when those things go out. Like they're gone within like a few hours, but I'm so grateful that that's the case. So I'm looking forward to bringing something new to the world, and I hope everybody likes it. Well,
I am looking forward to it, and I will definitely be purchasing one for sure, because again, it's just a matter of changing that mindset that, from, oh, it's hard, it's going to be too difficult, to just give it a try. Just, try it and you'll see, because there's certain things that, as sewers, that we go through this evolution in our sewing that you realize, oh, I don't like sewing with that, or I don't like making that. And you just don't do it. You've done it enough to know it's not your thing. And then you just move on. So for me, it's like, okay, I can't say it's really not my thing, hand stitching, when I really haven't given it a try and really paid attention to what it is that I'm doing. So I am loving that. So everybody definitely got to keep their eyes peeled for that. And so so it sounds like things with Fiber and Cloth has just been evolving, and it sounds like you're continuing to find your footing in this space. And for those who don't know, this is your full-time business, correct?
Yeah, it is.
Now, was that a transition? Were you doing something before?
Yeah, so I was working for a friend, a really close friend of mine, for about 3 years. She had a dental staffing agency. And I was doing really good there. Like if I ever quit this, I would probably go back to that business. Like I was doing good. I was a team lead there. But it's funny, especially when it's a friend, like that was her baby pretty much. She had started it from the ground up, like when it was just her, and seeing it evolve into what it was, even over the 3 years that I was, two and a half years that I was there, was like so cool. And at that time, my thing was a side business on Etsy, because that was what I was doing most of the time. And so it just, it's just like, it's your friend. Yeah. And you're happy for them, but it's like, I want to do my dream. Like, right. Instead of, and it was great, but it was just like I was waking up at like 5:55 in the morning so I could clock in it. And I was working from home. So it's like, I wake up at 5:55, I'm clocking in at 6 and working at 6 a.m. I'm just not an early person. That just doesn't work for me every single day. And just the energy was just different, having employees and directing them, and it was just different. So I was just ready to kind of do my own thing, wake up when I feel like, do what I want to do when I feel like doing it. It was a very big transition to a steady paycheck to, I don't know what's going to come in. Sorry, babe. Not really sure when I'm getting a check. You're going to have to hold it down. but he knew that when we discussed like me making it the full-time thing. So he was ready for that. And it hasn't disappointed. Like this business it pays the bills. I mean, sometimes the bill is smaller or bigger, but like we always have what we need. And I just appreciate, having the opportunity to do this full time is one that like I'm so grateful for. Yeah.
That is amazing. I am loving that testimony. That is absolutely amazing. And you can see the pride and the joy through your patterns that you create, as well as those who have, excuse me, have tested for you and whatnot.
Oh,
And
thank
so,
you.
yes, you can definitely see it through your work, and absolutely love your Instagram. So for those who don't know, I will have the website, not only the website, but also the Instagram handle for you to follow Alexis Fiber and Cloth over on Instagram, excuse me, and her website as well. So is there any, I know you said you working on some different projects, the zero waste projects coming up for Fiber and Cloth, or anything in things of that nature. So is there anything else that you are excited about for 2023?
Yeah, I get to teach at a retreat. I don't know if I'm allowed to say what the retreat is, so I can't say that yet, but I do get to teach at a retreat that's coming up this year, which is my first. I don't know why people ask me to do these things that I have absolutely no experience in doing. I really
because
don't.
the talent shines. The talent
that's what
shines.
one of my friends said, but I don't see it, but I appreciate it. But I'm just like, I've just always been kind of like that. Well, we'll throw it out there, see what people like. And everybody's like, oh my gosh. And I'm like, really? Like, but like I appreciate it. I've never taught. I mean, I've taught in some capacity, but very, very small. But I was asked to teach at a retreat coming up. So I'm looking forward to that. As far as teaching zero waste methods and everything like that. It's going to be a really good year. I kind of feel that. And I think everybody's kind of feeling that energy. I've seen so much like 2023 is rest and renewal, get myself right, focused on what I'm going to do, up builds and everything. And I feel that same energy. I'm looking forward to the possibilities, but it's just changing the language of my own business into a more sustainable capacity. I think getting started with this business, it's like when you're, especially when you're a Black designer, you're trying to compete in the industry, which is mostly, it's mostly not people of your color. So right. It's like you're trying to compete, and sometimes that competition or that trying to stay relevant kind of makes you lose a little bit of yourself. And I felt that over the years. I started this business with the hand sewing and everything to be a sustainably focused business. As I got into the pattern design aspect, like I said, I was making patterns that, looked nice and were popular, but I just didn't like the waste aspect. And I felt that too when I did the testing for agave, because we had 3 different versions of it before the final version, was released. And all my testers were great, but it was driving me crazy because I'm just like, I don't know how much like printing you guys have done. And I know that you guys are happy, but it bothers me that I've wasted so much stuff in this printing process. Whereas zero waste pattern testing, it's not like that. Like they're like, oh, I just wasted a little bit of fabric, but it still came out decent, And so I'm just excited to get back to what I love and right. what I appreciate and my values of what I base this business off of, instead of thinking about anybody else, doing what makes me happy and seeing who's along for the ride and let's move on together and do this. But I'm just excited to get back to my values for this business and what I want from it, and seeing that through completely without being distracted. So, yeah.
Yes. And I've said this before in the past, but as you continue as a person, a creative business owner, whatever the case may be, as you continue to go back to the blueprint of why you do what you do, and you begin to stay in your lane, like you said, and not, you see what's going, it's nothing wrong with seeing what else is going on out there, but realizing, okay, but that's that person's that's their why. It doesn't have to be your why. You know what I mean? And you decide, look, I'm staying in my lane. And that's one of the things I have been enjoying, excuse me, about BHM Pattern Designers. I only started this
Yes.
the 5th year, and the 5-year event. Prayerfully, I get to meet Miss Alexis because she's right here in Dallas. She's in the Texas area, but the main reason I started the challenge, February is my birthday month, and February is Black History Month here in the United States. But
Yes.
5 years ago, I didn't know, I was new to getting into indie pattern designers, period. But then when I learned about Black indie pattern designers, 5-6 years ago, I was like, that I was just blown away because I was like, that those people exist.
Yes. Represented. Yes, exactly.
And I was like, okay, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna host this. And I've said this before, very little following on Instagram and YouTube and all of that. But I said, I'm gonna do this because it's what I want to do, to showcase these Black pattern designers, and then evolved into also, because some designers have they offer other things like you. It's patterns, but you also now have your the kits as well. So you see what else this pattern designer is doing, what else they're involved in. Some people have books as well. And so it's being able to showcase that. And while, yes, we purchase throughout the year, Black History Month, we know, is very significant here in the United States. And being able to really highlight these different companies and designers has just, it keeps growing and it keeps evolving. And I'm so excited about the in-person event. Like I said, prayerfully get to meet you and many others out of the Dallas area coming up next month. But yeah, and for those who are watching, tickets are still available for you to register. Links to everything will be down in the description box, of course. But yeah, that's one of the big, reasons why I wanted to do this, because I did feel like it was, at least back then. Now it's gotten a ton better from back then. But back then I was like, okay, why nobody promoting these Black pattern designers?
I really do hope you take so much pride in what you do, Natita. Like, for real, you've given us space where we didn't really have any, like it's great to have a light shine on an area that wasn't really represented enough. So it's so appreciated, for real. It's great.
Thank you. I'm glad it's well received. I'm glad it is well received. And, like you say, the process sometimes is not always easy, and different things. And so, yeah, some of the we won't talk about some of the messages I've gotten, but at any rate, we celebrate. Imagine. We are excited. We are happy. And I am so thankful to you again for taking time out of your day today for us to do a little bit of a chat. Like I said, everybody, Alexis' website as well as Instagram. You don't have a YouTube channel, do you?
I do have a YouTube channel.
You do?
I do.
Okay.
I have 3 hand sewing. I'm not really good at promoting on YouTube at all, but I have a couple videos. I think I have 5 videos on there. A couple of them are hand sewing too. If you want to get started on there, I have a basics video that might whet your appetite a little bit.
Now, see, everybody, I'm today years old learning that she had a YouTube channel. So I will leave a link also to Alexis' YouTube channel, so you all go over and subscribe. So as she see her subscriber numbers ticking up, Alexis will just be like, okay, I need to put, even if they're very short videos, I need to put something out there.
Yeah, I do. That's a goal for 2023 as well.
Yes. So, all right, everybody. And of course, if you have any questions about anything, definitely leave them in the comment section below. But go over to Instagram, follow Fiber and Cloth Studio. Now you can go over and subscribe to her YouTube channel. Say hi to Alexis. And so thank you, everybody, for tuning in today. Stay tuned for Wednesday's video. You will see the reveal of my agave top and what it will dress. And what I did just a little bit different for that make. So thank you everybody for tuning in. You all have a fantastic and blessed week. Bye.